With that breaking news we mentioned off the top from Ukraine, where deadly Russian attacks forced civilians to run for their lives this morning in the capital city of Kyiv, as multiple blasts ripped apart busy neighborhoods. Photographers captured these images on your screen now of a so-called suicide drone. It's an unmanned aircraft which is designed to explode on impact. Holly Williams has the latest now on these terrifying aerial attacks.
For the second time this month, city streets in the center of Ukraine's capital have been pummeled. Russia's repeatedly denied targeting civilians, but this neighborhood is jam-packed with apartment buildings, schools and restaurants. Ukraine says the Russians used so-called suicide drones, which explode on impact, causing devastation. The US says Iran has agreed to sell several hundred of them to Moscow. Today's attack comes after Russia claimed over the weekend that Ukraine shelled the city of Belgorod, just over the border, with civilians wounded. And in eastern Ukraine, where the front line extends for around 1,500 miles, there's been more deadly fighting. Ukraine's
the idea that they're using drones, like kamikaze drones, right? Drones that explode on impact, like one-off drones like this, corresponds to what I've been seeing in like OSINT Twitter about potentially Russia's missile systems running low on missiles. I don't know if that's the truth or not. I have no way of accounting for it. I just don't know, right? But it's also straight up terrorism. Regularly, routinely targeting civilian areas beyond the, regularly and routinely targeting civilian areas beyond the established boundaries of the war, which is supposed to be, in the Eastern Front, is done with the specific purpose of causing chaos and disruption in the everyday existence of Ukrainians, in the everyday lives. Russia can say they're not targeting civilians, but let's be real, they fucking absolutely are.
Zelensky claimed last night that Russia has deployed 2,000 former prisoners to fight there, calling it state-sponsored terror.
It is
in the
state-sponsored
early
terror.
weeks of Russia's brutal invasion, Moscow's forces moved on Kyiv. The Ukrainian resistance, though, took the world by surprise, forcing the Russians to retreat and redirect their attacks to the east of the country. But after Ukraine blew up a bridge in territory occupied by Russia this month, vitally important for the Russian military, Moscow retaliated by again targeting the Ukrainian capital.
On Saturday, Moscow says 2 of its soldiers shot and killed 11 other service members while they were training at a firing range inside Russia. The Russian authorities are calling it a terrorist attack. This comes as Russia continues its push to mobilize 300,000 reservists to beef up its forces in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's that paired up with it is the terror and the Ukrainians doing the same terror, they just don't show it on CNN. Wait, what? This is so fucking, what an idiot. Why did he do this? Okay, we'll talk about Elon Musk in a second. There was also, Russia says 11 were killed in a shooting in a military base in Belgorod, where a gunman opened fire on volunteer soldiers of the Russian military training ground in Belgorod, killing 11 and wounding 15 others. So here's the thing, okay? Ukraine is fighting a war against an invading force. That's just the truth. If you were to talk about Ukrainian actions with respect to like LPR, DPR territories, proxy war between the Russian state and the Ukrainian state, that's entirely separate. Right now, they are fighting a war for emancipation, okay? They are fighting a war. It might have, they might also be participants of the American military-industrial complex, but ultimately, Ukrainians are fighting a fucking war against Russia, which is invading Ukraine, okay? That's it. That's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. Doesn't fucking matter. It does not. It doesn't matter what you say about like Ukrainians overextending or doing crazy shit. whether it be things that even the American government has come out and criticized them for example, the Dugin assassination, right? The botched Alexander Dugin assassination that ended up killing Dugin's daughter, or whether it be still, again, targeting critical infrastructure in Crimea that civilians are using regularly as well. Ultimately, they are trying to, they're trying to defend their country from Russian invasion. Okay? What I am fearful of, and I've talked about this already since I saw American State Department members talking regularly about Russia could use a fucking nuclear bomb, but if they use one, it'll be a baby nuke. It'll be a tactical nuke. It won't be that big of a fucking nuke. What? It's okay that Dugin's daughter, a Nazi, was killed, but I'm going to send for Azov and OUN? Yeah, I mean... Yeah, it's... I don't give a shit about the fucking Dugins, and I don't give a shit about the Azov battalion. There is no such thing as a baby nuke, okay? I don't think that is okay. I don't think that's adequate. I don't think that's appropriate. And I am fearful now more than before, even though the American State Department is stating that, Russia has not escalated or done anything, done any movements that they would consider to be terrifying, that they would consider, beyond the pale with respect to deploying nukes or moving nukes around. Okay? I think the State Department is trying to say that if Russia used a tactical nuke, they would not nuke back. Yes, I know. I understand that. They are saying that. They're saying if Russia used a tactical nuke, it would not be all-out war as long as the tactical nuke was, as long as the tactical nuke was used within the Ukrainian boundaries, which, again, doesn't fucking matter because it's still a nuke, and it's still a nuke that will hit Ukraine potentially. Additional fears that I have with respect to Russia using a nuke was also all the Russian allied forces, like states that are aligned with the Russian Federation and aligned with, including China, making efforts to evacuate all citizens under emergency evacuations from Ukraine. This came out yesterday, where hundreds of citizens plan to evacuate Ukraine after the war escalates. The South China Morning Post. More than 200 people indicate they will leave the country as security worsens. Beijing has increased calls for citizens to flee as Russia hits back over Crimea bridge attack. Now, this could mean China wants to evacuate because they think Russia is just like indiscriminately going to keep bombing civilian populations on top of Ukraine, and they don't want anyone to die, any Chinese national to die. Or it could mean that China knows, or countries aligned with the Russian Federation know something that we don't. And that's the reason why they are escalating their calls for evacuation more than they did before. Attacks on more Western population centers could be the full rationale for pulling the Chinese nationals out. Certainly. That is certainly the case. They were fucking up Kyiv, and I think mostly in China knew. No shot. There will be a nuke, and Russia doesn't even need one. They have almost all the territory they set out to get. This is propaganda from the State Department. If it's propaganda from the State Department, why is America stating that they're not using a nuke? They're not using a nuke. They're not going to use a nuke. But if they were to use a nuke, it would be a tactical one. One that does not warrant a nuclear holocaust. One that does not warrant all-out, mutually assured destruction. It's like if they were going to do propaganda, they'd be like, Russia's going to nuke, Russia's going to nuke, Russia's going to nuke. Right? There's more nuke talk in NA news than EU news. Anyway, what is this AOC's take on Russia, Ukraine? Let's take a look at what she had to say. Did you speak on being confronted by anti-war protesters? Sure, they were actually not anti-war protesters. They were right-wing Trumpers, and some were LaRouche cult members, not progressives as they claimed. Their own social media history shows it was a stunt. Dude, I don't want to talk about this. I'm not reading this. I'm not talking about this. I fucking hate it. It is literally such a tiny, irrelevant sliver of extremely online fucking weirdos, and you guys are extremely online fucking weirdos for regularly bringing it up. I have avoided talking about it because they are completely fucking irrelevant, okay? Stop breathing fire into this. It's not a real fucking movement. It's like MAGA communism. You know what I mean? It's not real. It's not a real thing. What do you mean, you guys? I'm sorry. It's like the fucking weirdos in the chat that are like, dude, you got to talk about this. People have been asking me to cover that story as though it's a real story for so fucking long. It's like, no. Baby nuke talks, State Department heads trying to de-escalate the worst case scenario in the hearts and minds of USA citizens? Yes. So they could say, I told you so. We said that they were going to use a baby nuke, but don't worry. We also said that we weren't going to retaliate with, by activating our nukes and doing mutually assured self-destruction, mutually assured destruction. So that's what I'm saying. It's just like, I see that as a genuinely terrifying problem for Ukraine. And I'll admit, like, I don't know if Vladimir Putin like would do such a thing. Okay, I don't know. Like, I'm admitting it. I don't know at this point. If he feels cornered enough, if he feels like his back isn't his back is pushed to a wall, will he activate? I don't know. I think people are overreading this with the evacuations. Russia's pouring troops into Belarus again, which means another Kyiv attack might happen again. Dude, they will get fucking owned. I don't know if it's to reshift Ukrainian forces away from the Eastern Territory where they've made gains to like go back into fucking Western Ukraine and then overtake Eastern territories once again with ease. But ultimately, this is just an extension. It's a continuation. It's never going to fucking end. This will never end. It's so fucking stupid. It's so stupid. Obviously, it's brutal and awful for all the Ukrainians that have to go through this. Like those old, the two babushkas come to mind immediately when I'm talking about this, like where they're like, we keep switching hats, but everyone's hitting us. Russians come in and they hit us. Ukrainians come in and they hit us. What the fuck? We just want to survive. And that is the unfortunate reality, that they always have civilians suffer. Meanwhile, the people that are gaining from this aren't the Ukrainian citizens. They're not the Russian citizens. It's the fucking weapons contractors, the defense industry. They're the ones who are selling this war economy. And they benefit from this war continuing. But yeah, I have seen a lot of movement of military personnel to Belarus. It's increasingly likely that a joint contingent of Belarusian and Russian forces are preparing for some sort of offensive operation along the border with northern Ukraine. Note the new tactical markings on a large majority of these vehicles. I haven't seen it, but is it the triangle? I guess maybe. You start a cigarette review channel? Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like it's the triangle seems to be the new marker. Like, it's not just a triangle. There's something else in it, like a triforce. If you had to guess, how long do you think the war in Ukraine will last? The war in Ukraine will last as long as the allies of Russia, China, and other nation states, and the allies of Ukraine, United States and Western powers, want it to continue to last. That's it. That is as long as the war will last, okay? It looks like a two-triangle symbol. It also seems to be in joint forces used on both Belarusian and Russian military hardware, which will imply a significant amount of tactical cooperation between the two armies that we've so far not seen this year. There is so far no evidence to suggest these units have been deployed to forward positions. As we saw in February, the window of time between the commencement of offensive operations and forward deployment is incredibly small. I think China is not on any particular side. They're on their own side. Russia is virtually alone. Yeah, no, that's crazy to say Russia is alone. Russia has OPEC and Russia has China. Let's be fucking real. As much as, I like to be the number one defender of Top G, like, you're being ridiculous when you say China is not on board with this. This doesn't happen without Chinese oversight. It doesn't happen without Chinese go ahead. I mean, I do think that is copium if you believe that there is nothing. China is not in any meaningful way, shape, or form involved. If anything, they could take the other side and apply pressure, but they're not doing that. So there it is. What is China's genuine question? What does China stand to gain? Undermining Western hegemonic power and creating a multipolar world rather than a single unified world that is under the banner of Western hegemonic superpowers. That's a huge gain. What the fuck? What does America stand to gain from Russia doing this? They sell weapons, but they also, reinforce their support. They re-galvanize and justify their existence. Look at NATO. I mean, this was a major win for NATO. Technically, state actors on both sides are making out like a fucking bandit. Meanwhile, the Russian population is in a state of disarray. And also, obviously, more importantly than that, the Ukrainian population is getting ripped apart. How is a multipolar world a bad thing? Genuinely curious. I personally don't think it is, but we're not going to get into that. The first trains with Russian troops have already started arriving in Belarus. Russian military trains don't carry heavy equipment, only trucks, petrol tankers, and passenger cars with soldiers. Russians are not being brought to the border of Ukraine like in January, but no training besides northern Belarus. This is Putin's war. There is no both sides. I mean, whether willingly or unwillingly, there are two sides. You know what I mean? Like, the Ukrainian population has been sucked into this war, but they are a side. What do you mean? They might be the right side. They are the right side. Their cause is just, but it's still a fucking side. You know what I mean? What are you talking about? It's not like Russia is fighting itself. When they fucking drone strike Western Ukrainian territory, they're literally drone striking. They're using suicide drones on top of fucking playgrounds and shit. Who do you think is dying there? How is taking the Donbass a just cause? They're an invading force? Wait, what? I can't tell if you're saying Russia invading Donbass or if you're saying Ukrainians are invading Donbass now, because I never said Russia's cause was just. And I can't tell what you're saying. There's no fucking way that you're automatically saying like, no, Donbass is Russian territory now and Ukrainians are invading it. I mean, come on. I mean, like, you can't equivocate Ukraine offense being as equal to the bad stuff Russia does. For example, the bridge offensive attack. I never have. But you have actually self-reported desperately by looking at other people that are desperately trying to make it seem like I'm equivocating. I never did that. I know where you're coming from, motherfucker. Okay, get a better source of information if you want, because I never said that. I've been fairly clear on Ukrainian emancipation being a just cause from the fucking jump, including literally today, not that long ago. No, they're not trying to gaslit me. I think they've been gaslit. I'll be charitable to chatters like that. I believe that they themselves have been gaslit by people who are still trying to cut like commentary on my commentary on this particular subject by going back to the old memes that have unfortunately had a lot of prominence in the YouTube essayist space. Claiming that I've always been a fucking fan of Russia or some shit when I very clearly have not. And you guys already know that. But they're just trying to go back to that meme over and over again and hammer it because they thought that was effective. Anyway. So, I don't know. I don't know what will happen. We can only wait and see. I have said time and time again, they aren't going back to it for no reason. It was your takes on the Crimean Bridge destruction that spurred recent discourse. Yeah, but I never made a moral equivalence, a moral equivocation between the two. I literally said what Russia is doing is always going to be significantly worse than what Ukraine is doing because they are the invading force. So there was no moral equivocation. Remember, there is no recent discourse. It's just made up shit trying to, reinvent the original line of attack. Anyway, this unfortunately is a subject matter that turns everyone into fucking psychos, in my opinion. And they probably think I am being a psycho. Why are people so afraid to say Ukraine bad? Because they're the ones who are getting fucking owned right now. You know what I mean? The Ukrainians are the ones who are dying. Ukrainians are the ones who are suffering. That's the reason why people say it. But then the other reason is because they're fucking lost in the sauce. Like they can't even they don't even think about anything. That like any kind of criticism towards Ukrainian actions in any meaningful capacity is still completely Putin propaganda. Anyway, in other news, Sky News, Trust has just removed one of her biggest remaining arguments for staying in power. Anal. That's right. There it is. It's the truth. It's shocking, but it's the truth, certainly. Wait, Teenage Ganon and Teenage Trunks fused? Yeah, I don't know what that is. Okay. Those criticisms have to be legitimate, though. Those bridges are military target. Bridges have always been military targets since, like, the existence of bridges. Okay, why don't they blow up bridges deep inside of fucking Russian territory, then? Like, what do you mean? Come on, brother. Like, there are overextensions that Ukrainians could engage in, the Ukrainian forces could engage in, okay? Like, there are fucking pedestrian bridges. They blew up a fucking bridge with civilians on it, you know? That's crazy. That's escalation outside of defense. Okay, well, I guess you do recognize it then.